We are ready to come back, and this is a Q&A session on the Q1 report. I'd asked Andrea for a short palate cleanser as we're onto a new topic, because you might need sort of warming up before you have any questions, because I know there were a lot of unanswered insurance questions. So, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, it's certainly not qualified to answer all of those insurance questions that you did have. This is a question and answer session on the quarterly performance report for the first quarter of 2024-2025. And so that covers the year to date up to the 30th of September 2024. Just a couple of reminders. This is the first quarterly report that we're reporting on against our new long-term plan, or the long-term plan as it stands. And we have done, and through Joss and Baz and co, a bit of work just to reshape this. But it's certainly not a finished and complete product, but what we've tried to do is try to reflect some of the conversations that we have had with you as elected members as to making sure that the information contained in the report is helpful, not only to you, but also others that may be interested in Council's ongoing performance. That includes ensuring that we move some of our financial information up front into the report. It includes, providing some sort of an executive summary on our key performance indicators. We still report performance by strategic activity areas, but we also do a key strategy report. So we do a sort of a deep dive into one particular strategy area each quarter. So rather than sort of do a light touch on all of the strategies, we're sort of doing a bit of a deep dive on one particular area, and we'll provide updates on others in subsequent quarters. So we are looking at this report on Thursday at the committee meeting. This is an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you have on this report. Perhaps the last thing I would cover is there are a number of financial resolutions that we're asking you to make on Thursday, and this does reflect our new approach. So in the past, many of our budgets used to include amounts that we're sort of holding just in case we had these things kind of come into fruition, so land purchases, things like that. We've made sure our budgets are much more streamlined in this LTP process with the intent of coming back to you and seeking those adjustments. So rather than sort of holding any sort of buffer in budgets, our budgets are what is known, and we will come back to you as and when we have these things. So that's why you have a few more of those kind of resolutions. They're always small in nature, but it's just sort of a bit more tidy in terms of the financial management space. So I will pause there, and I'm happy to take any questions. We've got Lloyd and Joss here, and there's others in the room that may be able to talk to key aspects that you have.
Thank you.
Just further to your introduction, Andrea, councillors have asked a number of questions, and those Q&As are being finalised as we speak, so they'll be coming out very shortly. So those questions will be answered for you in the normal manner. If there are any additional ones that come up today, we'll take a note of that and come back to you.
I just wanted to, because obviously the backdrop to the LTP amendment, just to check in that those kind of minor adjustments have kind of been through the lens of the LTP amendment we're undertaking, that they're items that sort of are not.
Absolutely, and they're all there for your approval and your consideration. Many of them, a couple of them are looking at doing the final transaction that has already been underway. So land purchases, and the timing of that has just happened earlier than was included in the budget. There is one in particular that's looking at efficiencies in terms of the work that we're doing, that we need to do that work in terms of, and if we're thinking about the principles that we proposed, the first principle was maintaining our existing infrastructure, so just doing that in the most efficient and effective way. So we've definitely taken that lens, but also recognising that we are bringing them to you in this this context, and it's up to you for that decision. Yeah.
Councillor Pannett.
Yeah, just following on from that. Yeah, because I did ask a question, maybe I didn't ask it very well. So really, we don't have that much choice, Andrea, on whether we support these or not, but just given we've made with some contracts here, there are some deals that would just be, and they are relatively small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the case. I mean, and most of them are ones that we had already committed to and we're continuing, and it's just moving the budget to the right place. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we doing it section by section, Rebecca? No, just go. Okay. Can I just ask, when we do things like the half-cost path review, where we didn't end up making any changes, that we do actually indicate that? Because it just sort of says it was implemented, but then we chose not to make any changes because we had some reasoning around that. Is that possible?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that reference is, but we can absolutely.
Under governance,
Yeah.
I think. No,
So it may have been just simply the timing of when we did that, but absolutely, because of course this will be at a point in time, but that
Okay,
could have
yeah,
well
okay.
been. Yep.
Yeah,
So
just-
we can absolutely do that. Yes.
just for clarity. Apologies if I missed it, but rental inspections, how are we going on that?
Rental one.
The rental.
I'm online. I can speak to that matter.
Great, thanks.
So yes, we did. Everyone will recall we did a pilot for a year, and we agreed to continue that for one more year. When the Housing Action Plan was presented to council last November, those rental we are open for business. Those rental inspections are continuing. The surprising thing that's happened is we actually haven't had many requests for inspections. So we have spoken with Renters United, we've spoken to the Victoria Uni Students Association, we've spoken to a number of groups who potentially might be sources of those, but we haven't, there's been a very small number. So we have inspected some, and we are having that ongoing dialogue with MB, but there's not a lot that are being referred to us. So we're open for business, that service is available, but just, let you know that there is a small number.
So just following on from that, is it that people don't think their houses need to be inspected, or they just are worried about the repercussions of reporting? And are you having productive conversations with landlords? I
suppose it's a bit of speculation as to why people aren't lodging those complaints, and there could be any of those reasons that you mentioned, Councillor Pannett. Certainly when I think there perhaps is a little bit of a fear of retribution from landlords, but certainly we have provided information that has been used at the Tenancy Tribunal. So the people that we have spoken to, it has been a useful service for them, yeah.
Okay, thanks. And just one question, then I can be put back on the list. There is. Okay. The lower costs in the earthquake-prone building program, why is that? That is on page 52 of Diligent.
I don't have Diligent. Do you have the page number in the quarterly
that
report?
is a
Sorry,
good-
it's up on the top right-hand corner.
Oh, sorry. Now I've got it. It is. And now my notes. Oh, page 35. It's good to save money, but I'd want to be maximising our investment in this space, particularly given the discussion we've just had.
I believe that is simply a timing issue. It's nothing to do with.
Okay.
It has been a timing issue.
Okay, cool.
Councillor Abdurrahman does have a question,
Question,
so
right,
I'll go to him, but I've got you back on my very short list.
Kia ora whanau. On page 26, it talks about the decrease in revenue, especially on rates, and how are we approaching, are we using debt collectors example to recover some of this money? If so, how big is that issue?
I think I can start, and Michael Nyamdeza is on the line. He can answer the remaining parts of the question or anything that I forget to cover. So just for clarity, we are not using debt collection agencies for rates collection purposes. So to be very clear on that, we do use them in certain circumstances for like the parking. We have the MOJ process that we can go through for parking and other areas, but certainly not for rates. So just want to make make that clear. We take a very much a ratepayer first kind of process and principle. So we work as hard as we can with the ratepayer to understand their circumstances and look at what they can actually achieve and do, and make sure that they're aware of things like the rebate scheme, different options under remittance, postponements, although that isn't something that is commonly taken up. But that's the approach that we take. But I will let Michael talk to this as well.
Thanks, Andrea. I think you've covered quite a lot of that, and I've got nothing more to add.
Okay, thanks.
Unless the councillor feels that the question hasn't been answered.
No, it's answered. Thank you. I got two more questions. And the second one is on page 15. It talks about the revenue decrease, and the biggest one is, it says other revenues. And what is that? Is that the government one included in that, or what is that?
Yeah, so there's two key components to that, the revenue decrease. Yeah. One is kind of a timing issue, and one is around NZTA revenue. So because of NZTA's announcement on the NLTP in terms of the program in which it is funding, we haven't strongly pursued all of the activity that we were going to, because we needed to ensure that we'd be getting the revenue coming in. And so because we haven't been successful in getting all the revenue that we were expecting, but we had forecast, we haven't undertaken the works, and therefore the revenues haven't been received. So the usual process with NZTA revenue is that we undertake the work, we fund the work, then we put in a claim to NZTA. We haven't been doing that work, and so expenditure is down as well, and we haven't sought to claim that revenue. We will be providing advice on the NLTP in the near future, and that is being gripped up as part of the LTP amendment process, so that we can provide a really clear articulation of what is all the movements in the work program. The second component to that is the way that we manage our sludge and the funding for our sludge treatment plant. So what happens is that funding is managed by Crown Infrastructure Partners. They have there's a special purpose vehicle that's set up. We draw down money from that special purpose vehicle when we have incurred expenditure also. Originally, when we did the forecasts, we looked at the timing of the work and made a best estimate as to when that information, when that work would be completed and when we'd be drawing down. But however, as briefed to you separately, we have had some delays to that work, and so the drawdown of that funding, which we treat as revenue, has not come at the pace that we would expect. So those are the two major reasons, and they both sit in that other revenue camp because they're sort of other revenue funds coming through.
One more question, Madam Chair. On page 70 and 71 as well, on the actual pages 52, it talks about the amount of the budget. Is that including the OPEX, or is this only CAPEX?
So most of that will be CAPEX costs. And the reason I say that is because when you are working on a project like this, you largely capitalise all your costs in creating the asset. So most of this is capital cost. There may be a margin of operational cost in there as well.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, only one more.
Yes.
In that case, the figure that we have here seems different from the LTP.
Yes. So in some cases, this is the whole of project cost. I think. Oh no, we've got both whole of project and the forecast. In some cases, they don't quite align in terms of the costs, and we are still working on that. So different kind of overheads have gone into certain things, and we're looking to align that much more. But by and large, they should be in the same kind of ballpark.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Calvert.
Yeah, thank you. And first up, it's looking really good. So thank you. Just back onto transport, I see there's a Harbour Quays interim project, but I just wanted to know where the whole Harbour Quays project is, because there is money in the budget.
I don't know if we've got anyone here from, is Brad online?
Because I'm talking about millions. I'm not talking about, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Councillor Calvert. I think Baz is going to have a look and see if he can find him.
That would be useful. And I think you mentioned, because of course, with the National Land Transport changes and what the government will fund, that's going to really impact. And I suppose we've got a closer eye on this, not just from a quarterly report, but for the LTP.
Yeah, so we will definitely be bringing all of that information back to you as part of the workshops.
Okay. And just under Treasury and gross borrowing and net debt, can you explain that? I'm just getting a bit confused in myself. Which was page 8 of the report, but I don't know, but not necessarily the.
Yes. Yeah. So the way in which, and I'll try and do it as simply as I can. The way in which that we manage our debt is we can't just go to the bank when we want the money or LGFA. What we need to do is we need to forecast when we're going to have the required cash flow, and we have to draw that down when the LGFA go out to seek renewals. And so in some cases what we do is, so we've
No.
Oh, John. We have borrowed 1.65 billion and actually drawn that down from the LGFA. However, what we have done, excuse me, is we're holding some of that money, for example, in term deposit, so pre-funding, so that we can use that up as and when we need, and until the next requirement for LGFA funding can come up. The other thing that we need to do in that space as well is to make sure that all our funding doesn't come due all at once. So we do look to smooth when we do draw down our debt to enable us to manage our interest rate risks as well. So we do that over a period of time.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay. Moana's here,
Can
so you may be able to
answer
repeat
that
the question.
Transport question? Do you want to? Yeah, do you want to repeat the question, Councillor?
So just under the significant projects update, and it's on page 53 of the actual annual report, not the papers. And bear with me because I've got a few papers as well myself here, but there's a project, Harbour Quays interim project, which is just for $6.8 million in the budget, but we've got a lot more money under under the city streets, and which I believe is Harbour Quays in that. Yeah, so for instance, we've got pre-implementation city streets program, and we've got $11.5 million in this current financial year. And I'm just trying to understand where that might be.
Apologies, I may have to get back to you. I suspect that it's the difference between the cycleways versus the bus projects as part of Harbour Quays. But I'd need to go away and check, and I can do that now.
That would be good. And just what's CapEx and is there any OpEx in there? That would help
The
as well.
CapEx, OpEx, and yeah. So I will come and get the exact line from you, Councillor, and I'll go away and find it out
because there is also, there is a bike network, I think, program there.
Yes, there is. The Bike Network program is reflected separately.
Yeah, so the bike network program is reflected as per the council decision on the bike network plan. Then, of course, when Let's Get Wellington Moving was in place, there were bike projects that were taken over into what was then called the City Streets program of work. So we're still unravelling what those Let's Get Wellington Moving budget lines are to get them back into standard council. But decisions that were made around the cycling stuff through City Streets were made as part of a City Streets package, which also included pedestrian changes and bus changes, whereas the bike network plan that council approved was the primary bike networks and some of the secondary work. So they were two programs of work which we're now bringing back together now that Let's Get Wellington Moving has been wound down.
Okay. And I just have one other question, but I'm happy to go back on the list.
Okay, thanks. You can go now, Councillor, if it's just one more.
Can you tell me, it might be a bit controversial, but which budget did the 563k bike rack come out of? Is that an OPEX or a CAPEX?
I don't think that's the correct amount.
No, that's certainly not the amount of the bike rack.
We're implementing the bike rack. So where did that come from? Which program of work?
I wouldn't want to put you crook, so I'll go and check.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Free.
Look, I realise I did miss the briefing on this because I had another commitment, but the Waterfront Edge project, can you explain to me what's going to happen? Obviously, there's been a little bit of a change because of some increase in the costs, but there's also, we're being asked to approve some sort of shifting around of money.
James Roberts isn't online, so I'm not sure, and I can come back to you.
Yeah.
In effect, what we need to do is we need to look at the entire cost for the waterfront, which I understand at the briefing, and nor did I manage to attend that briefing myself. The suggestions were quite substantive in terms of the dollar values. What that work is still yet to all be pulled together and to be finalised. But what we are doing for now is we are utilising the existing budget that we have and asking for the year 2 amount in the LTP to be brought forward and to undertake the work to ensure that we're doing what we can as soon as we can within the existing budgets that have been provided for within the LTP, and that any further funding we would need to come back to you and discuss as a separate matter.
Yes, and I think to add to that, I think the lighting was what was going to be reallocated from within existing budgets, and the fencing issue would be come back separately as a decision.
Correct.
As a decision. Yeah, that's what I thought was a likely suggestion of what's been written, but I wanted to clarify it. Thank you. And this might also be a little bit off-piste, but if we're talking about money for the Basin Reserve, and this might be something I'll just have to take offline, I have wondered if there's money for just ordinary repairs to the wooden fence, which is starting to look quite dilapidated, or whether that's a budget we need to think about providing.
I think we'll need to take that one offline, and because it's I don't have direct visibility of that.
And we also have the CCOs coming in on Thursday. Yeah. Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora. Just on page 75, it's the Wellington Water Project. Just looking at the Wellington Airport, that's the wastewater renewal. So there's $5.5 million in that budget for that.
Chris,
so just wanted to get clarification on what that was for.
Wellington Airport, it's WW, so it's the wastewater renewal. Yeah, it is the wastewater renewal.
Wastewater renewal, cool. Have we got an update on the seawall renewal that government has fast-tracked? Like, have we got that in our budget yet?
No, and we'll be looking at that and providing advice to you in the near future. So Jenny's nodding her head.
Thank you. Just looking at the sludge project, it's got 2 red bars. I understand we've had an update, but just want to check that is still on track to meet both investment and timing.
Yeah, so as previously advised, there was some timing delays, but we hadn't been formally notified of that. And so that is why we have continued to mark this as red, because we haven't sort of gone through the process. I understand from that it has been, and Janet's here, so she can give an update. She's online.
Morning, councillors. Yes, so the first piece confirmation that the project continues to run to the previously approved P80 budget amount is correct. We still do. We have in the last 3 days received formal submission of the extension of time claim to the constructor, but not to Wellington City Council. So we still are running it as red, exactly as you say, until we receive that, can then make an assessment and make a decision on it before confirming it.
Thanks, Janet. After Deputy Mayor Foon has asked those questions, it has made me think it feels like a while since we've seen Wellington Water, and there were some relatively significant items in this Q1 report, and I'm wondering if, because, well, I don't think anybody from Wellington Water is here, but whether it might be quite timely for us to have a session with them and, you know, talk about some of these, because there were a couple of sort of relatively significant unbudgeted items.
Yeah, we can arrange.
I think that would be good. Feels like it's been a little while.
Yeah.
All right. Councillor Pannett.
Thank you. Good that Alison is here. Alison, page 43, could I just ask you a question about our progress? So we've got to celebrate everyone. So a 10% reduction in emissions is good, but 57 is better. So you say that it's too slow to achieve our targets, you know, this catastrophe of climate change. So what do we need to do to speed up the process?
It's a little bit challenging in the current funding context. One of the things we noted in our response on the second emissions reduction plan of central government was that we needed stronger regulatory and funding from central government to make more significant progress. And then we have seen that risk materialise in the NLTP funding decisions. So I don't know, it's kind of the equivalent of win lotto, but I think stay the course with the works that the transport transformation that we have outlined in the spatial plan and that we have outlined in Te Atakura. If we stay the course with that, then that is a fundamental plank of ensuring that the city is set up for success. The other key area that we make a big difference is in the waste sector, with our commitment to circular economy, to the sludge processing plant, and to improvements in landfill and waste systems. So those are the key kind of policy platforms that we have that will support the city to achieve its carbon reduction target. I would note that that 10% reduction was last year's result. Preliminary carbon data that we have shows that the emissions are bouncing back up. The emissions intensity of the electricity grid was very good last year, and that helped us, and it has gone back to a more normal level this year. So we're not expecting that 10% to hold for this year's reduction results. I would stress this is a group effort. Local government is one part of a group effort, and other parts of the system are a tad distracted by the events of the moment.
Okay.
So,
and sorry, the report does say a total of 10% between 20 and 2023, but you said it was 10%.
That's between FY20 and FY23, but between FY20 and FY24, it has gone back up. So it will no longer be a 10% reduction. So that is sad, but I think the bump that we got from renewable energy and from COVID reducing activity levels, those benefits have gone. And so we're back to kind of pretty much where we were before.
Not that we want COVID back.
No, but we do need people to continue shifting their transport habits and their transport behaviours, and we need more renewable energy in the grid, which the central government has a strong eye on, which is really helpful. We need increased urban density. We need better activity going on in waste. We need all of the things we know we need.
Okay. Thank you. And my other question, Jenny, it might be unfair to put you in the hot seat just when you've just started, but look, Wellington Water's at least starting to track a little bit better, but still failing. So are you confident that the trajectory will get us in the right place in a couple of years? No, shaking head. Or is, you know, structural reform, which, you know, probably know I'm deeply sceptical about, will try and, resolve that?
Yeah, I think through you, Chair. In my first 3 weeks, I'm learning about Wellington Water, so I'm probably not able to answer that question just yet, but I am,
But Chris might want to have a go.
This is here. Sorry, Chris. Come to the microphone.
If you want to add to the shaking of your head.
Can't you? Okay. So look, we've seen an excellent improvement from Wellington Water. That's the best improvement we've seen certainly since I've started at the council. So hats off to them. They've obviously doing some really good work there, and a lot of this is off the back of the leaks funding that we put forward. We managed to reduce the backlog, and that gives them more time to obviously focus on other things as well. So it is a really good news story. Are we going to get to the point where we're meeting all of the KPIs? It's very unlikely. This is a long-term problem of we need a lot more investment in the system. So whilst it's great to see this improvement, we may see some further improvement. But in terms of meeting all of the criteria and the performance target, it's probably 5 to 10 years away, to be honest. There's a lot of investment required across the region. Does that answer your question?
It does. There is some scepticism about the level of investment required. Are you...
Probably a water reform question, that one.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, there is a lot of investment required. We do know that's a fact. The quantity, the quantum of that is something that we would need to work through. And then also the question becomes, even if you had $2 billion given to you today, it's going to take a long time to fix that networking to scale up. So it's a challenging question to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Moana, did you want to answer the previous questions? Thank you.
So the 7 million for that is all interim bus changes. So that was getting the second spine up and running. So it's for the physical works, which was leading on to a bigger program of work, which obviously now is being reconsidered as part of the LTP amendment process. That's 50% funded by Greater Wellington, although of course they're going through their own processes at the moment around confirming their budgets. And so does that answer your first question, Councillor Calvert?
Yes, but I just want to know why we didn't put in the rest of the amount, at least even just to acknowledge that there's no work being done. Because it's quite a few $1 million in the budget.
Yeah. So so that's just the interim project.
Yes.
So that's a separate project.
Yeah.
The greater project. So what you've got there with the whole of project costs is for the interim changes.
Yeah.
Of which I think it's 1.6 million in this current year. For those physical works to enable the Regional Council to get their second spine up and running. I can check for you where those other project costs were factored into the LTP.
Yeah, because they just...
But the other costs obviously aren't an interim project.
Yeah, I would also note, Councillor, that this component is the project progress update that comes out of our PMO. So it doesn't necessarily report on every single project, and it only reports on some of those projects that we're actively incurring costs for and things like that as well. So, there is a timing thing here. I think what you're raising, though, is quite a good point, that we just need to be clear about some of the naming, and as Moana talked about how we're reshaping some of these programs, making sure we put this detail in here. So I've taken a note for that for the PMO as well.
That would be good, because I'm talking about big projects. I'm not talking about small ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just the timing as to when they get put into the PMO process and what we've got here. So we can certainly work with them to update that for the next quarter as well.
Okay, thank you.
And the budget for the bike rack is the cycling minor works budget.
Cycling minor works. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Calvert, did you have more questions? I had your name on the list again, but I might have...
I only had one. It might have been asked, or it might be in the list of questions, but it's only minor, but I'm just curious to see why which is good, why our development contribution revenue was up quite a bit. And I couldn't see an explanation, because it's 107% variation.
Yeah, I think we probably didn't put a variance explanation, because while it's 107%, it's still off a very low base in terms of revenue. So we tend to explain variances that are sort of more in the millions of dollars. We can follow that up and come back to you.
That would be good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
Again, going back to revenue, and investment revenue decreased by 45%. And what is that one, Andre?
Sorry, I'm just having a quick... I believe... Can I come back to you on that, Councillor? I believe that we actually net off our interest revenue, and so I just think it's you need to add the interest expense and the interest revenue together, and it's netted off. But I don't want to lead you astray, so I'll just double check that for you and come back to you.
Cool. My last question would be regards to the under budget year to end. Is that part of that? The 40 million is for the vehicle, electric vehicle network.
Can you please repeat that? Sorry.
It says on page 11, I think. It says 172 and actual spend is 107. And out of that is Let's Get Wellington Moving, 40 million, and housing, 8 million, other projects, 29. Of those 29 millions, is the vehicle network 40 million of that?
No, that's there may be an element of it, but it's made up of a lot of different capital projects and a small amount of those. Yeah.
Do we know how much is for the vehicle network at this stage? And
I don't have that detail to hand.
Okay, cool. No, thank you.
Councillor Free?
Just talking about Wellington Water made me think we possibly could benefit from a presentation from the airport as well, because they are doing a big project on the southern seawall, which I don't think we have to contribute to, but they also have plans to upgrade their western wall, which is protects our road and some of our pipes. And I can imagine they'll be expecting a contribution. It'd be quite nice to know the timing.
All right, is somebody taking a note of that?
We've noted.
Beautiful. Deputy Mayor Fung?
Yeah, just to understand a bit about the waste KPIs, just noting we're not meeting our diversion ones. Is that a trend? Is that ongoing? What is the reason for not meeting them? Hopefully it's a good news story that we're not consuming as much.
Yeah, we are slightly off our diversion tonnes at the moment. However, this happens each year. This is a seasonal factor because in the warmer months we have a lot more green waste that come in. So I mean, we're on track to still meet our diversion tonnes for this year. It's just a seasonality.
Okay, yeah, just the first. Okay, great. One more quick question on the new landfill, and noting that Wellington Water and I know a few other businesses are having trouble not having the clean fill available.
Yep.
How is there an interim solution for them?
No, there's no. I mean, there's the C&D landfill that we've partnered with the Halversons on is, well, not partnered, it's operating agreement, but that's going to be set up in 25-26. The challenge we've got locally is there's not sufficient land available across the region, and there's quite challenging, even if you do find the land, to get the associated consent. So we just have to keep working as best as we can at the moment, but we can't. You can't really conjure up a clean fill at the moment. However, we do have options at Kiwi Point Quarry at the moment to accept clean fill. There's some options in Hutt City as well. So there are some pockets of options, but in terms of a large scale solution, we really need to wait until the C&D facility is up and running to help with that. But we are doing everything that we can.
Okay, and do you think that will be on track to get open at the specified time?
I haven't heard otherwise, but I need to follow up with the Halversons after my trip to see how they're going with the construction. I believe they're about to start some enabling work, so I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have noted at the beginning of this session, because we are having a Q&A and we've had a briefing and we have had a written one, I'm going to be quite tight on any questions on the day, and that is because we have got all the CCOs coming in. So if anybody is online and in the room and thinks they're going to have a bunch of questions on Thursday, where I'm going to be mean about it. But Councillor Pennant, you can have some more now.
So Moana, you know my views on transport, that I think the money should be transferred from roads to walking and cycling, but $500,000 on a cycle rack is a little bit
we have clarified that it's not the correct amount, and we should stop spreading misinformation around that amount.
So I understood it was all the work to enable it, but it's still a lot of money. And I guess I'm just wanting some clarification from staff just about the way we spend that very important money to get the best outcomes, and I'm just not sure that was. So what is the process for deciding on those minor works and where the racks are going to be put? Because could we have something a little more basic?
I think we need Brad in the room to answer that question, because he is the person that was accountable for that project, and he can come back on that one at a point in time.
It's just really a question about just being super careful about the way we spend.
Yes.
It is not a hostile question.
No. And you know, it wasn't. The money wasn't just about funding the bike rack, it was also about doing improvements to that area in conjunction with the installation of the bike rack.
So in terms of the electricity network or the water?
He will have the detail.
Okay, yeah.
I've got the details which I can flick to everyone, and you can see how the 563k was
Okay, we're going to not have a conversation about this here. Are there any other further questions, councillors? Thank you, everybody, and for answering all of the wide variety of questions, and thank you, councillors, for your participation.